By the time the parole officer tackled her into my rhododendrons, she had already tried to evict me from my own front porch. This cabin was supposed to be condemned, screamed Janice Weller, former HOA president, current ex-felon, and reigning queen of bad decisions. Her status-sued ankle monitor let out a pathetic little beep, beep, beep as it lost its mind, apparently not calibrated, for launching herself at the man whose testimony helped send you to prison. I just sipped my coffee on the cabin steps and watched her flail in the bushes, while the new HOA board, half of parole and probation, and 3 very confused neighbors looked on. She twisted around, leaves in her hair, eyes locking on me, like I was faulty siding. "You were supposed to be gone, Daniel," she hissed. I lifted my mug in a little toast. Yeah, Janice, funny thing about property. Deeds, they do not expire just because you go to prison. My name is Daniel Cross, and I live in a cabin the HOA keeps insisting is a rustic single-family dwelling opportunity. It is a cedar cabin on the edge of Pine Hollow Preserve, a nature-forward planned community, which is HOA speak for. You can see trees, but only approved trees in approved shapes with approved leaves. I bought the place because it was tucked at the far edge of the neighborhood, half hidden in pines, with a creek behind it and enough distance from everyone else's McMansions that I could pretend I did not live in a suburb. Enter Janice Weller, then president of the Pine Hollow Preserve Homeowners Association. Janice had the energy of someone who printed the bylaws at Staples and made them into a coffee table book. Her hair was always pulled back in a tight bun that looked like it had its own social security number. The first day I moved in, she showed up with a welcome basket and a tape measure. "We do not usually allow cabins," she said, looking around like the wood might be contagious. "But since you are pre-existing, we will just need to discuss your aesthetic compliance." I said, "It is a cabin in the woods, Janice. That is the aesthetic." She smiled like she had just found a violation. "Oh, we will see." Within 3 months, Janice declared war. First came the polite notices. Your firewood stack is not in an approved storage unit. Your porch light temperature is non-compliant. All bulbs must be HOA soft white 2700K. Unregistered wildlife activity noted. Please address. I had a raccoon. His name was Pete. Pete did not care about the HOA. Then came the creepy stuff. I caught Janice taking photos through the trees at night, pacing off the distance from my cabin to the creek, measuring my chimney with a laser measure. She started calling it the shack in emails. At one point, she tried to claim my cabin was technically an outbuilding and therefore had to be painted neighborhood, taupe and modernized. She attached a mock-up image where she had photoshopped my cabin into a sad beige box when I pointed out that the cabin was listed as a primary residence on the county records. She escalated. Fake violation. Letters turned into threats. Daily. Fines. Forced architectural review. Potential lien. When that did not scare me, she got creative. She filed a complaint with the county that my old wiring was a fire hazard and that my wood stove was unsafe. The inspector came out, took one look, and said, "This is the safest house I have seen in this neighborhood." He signed off with a flourish. The report should have ended it. Instead, it gave Janice a new idea. If she could not get my cabin condemned through code enforcement, she would just manufacture something worse. The night everything flipped, the power went out. Only at my place. It was February. Windy, and the pines were whining like haunted telephone poles. I went down to the breaker box and found something off. The lock had been cut, the panel was open, and the main line had been deliberately yanked in a way that screamed not natural causes. Out by the road, I noticed something else. A security camera on a tree aimed at my cabin. The kind sold on late-night TV to people deeply afraid of Amazon packages. The next morning, the sheriff's deputy came knocking. "Got a report of illegal off-grid modifications," he said. "Somebody suggested you had bypassed the meter and were stealing power from the HOA grid." I laughed. Then I saw the incident report he held under complainant. It said Weller Janice. I walked the deputy out to the box and pointed at the obvious tampering. He frowned. "Yeah, whoever called this in was not very bright. This is vandalism, not theft." He took photos, filed a vandalism report, and asked if I had any cameras. Not yet, I said, but I will. What Janice did not know was that I installed them that afternoon. One on the cabin, one in the trees by the road, one watching the path from the cul-de-sac. 3 weeks later, when the sheriff showed up again, this time with a warrant based on Janice's new accusation that I was cooking drugs in the woods, I handed him a flash drive. There is no meth lab, I said. Just your favorite HOA president, committing what I think lawyers call several felonies. The footage showed Janice cutting my breaker box lock, Janice planting a plastic bag under my woodpile, Janice making a late night call from her SUV in front of my place. The sheriff watched, jaw tightening. Yeah, he said slowly, that is evidence tampering and false reporting, at minimum. 2 months later, Janice was convicted on multiple counts, filing false police reports, tampering with evidence, vandalism, harassment. The judge did not find her HOA status. Compelling mitigation. She got 3 years in prison. Everyone assumed that by the time she got out, I would have moved. Everyone apparently except me. Fast. Forward 3 years. Pine Hollow Preserve had changed. The new HOA board was milder, mostly focused on landscaping, contracts, and the pool. They sent polite reminders instead of threats. No one mentioned my cabin except to say things like, man, you have got the best spot in the neighborhood. I had added more. Cameras, a new metal roof, and a rocking chair that creaked just enough to unsettle people who did not like silence. Then one afternoon, the new HOA President Marcus Ng sent out an email, just a heads up, former resident and former HOA president Janice Weller has been released on parole. Her registered address is within the county. Please report any suspicious behavior. 2 days later, I heard the sound of a car I had not heard in years. Janice's old beige SUV resurrected like a cursed NPC. I watched from the porch as she stepped out, thinner, hair shorter, face sharper, ankle monitor flashing like a discount Fitbit. She looked at my cabin and froze. You could see it in her eyes. She had built a story in her head where her grand campaign had worked, where the cabin was demolished, where the woods were reclaimed by compliant stucco. Instead, she saw a fresh stain on the cedar, a new solar array, my truck in the driveway, and me on the porch, coffee mug in hand. Her face went through all 5 stages of grief in about 10 seconds, ending in pure fury. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, marching up the path. "Living in my house," I said. "What are you doing?" "Violating parole within the first 6 minutes. I was told this structure would be removed," she snapped, her voice sharp with indignation. "This area was supposed to be brought up to community standards." "Janice, you plead guilty to tampering with my property," I said. "You are legally not supposed to be within 300 ft of it or me." That is when she made mistake number 2. She stepped closer. "This neighborhood is mine, Daniel. That cabin is an eyesore you do not deserve." My phone was already recording. My other hand was already dialing. "Hey, officer. Ramirez?" I said when the parole officer answered. "Yeah, it is Daniel Cross. You will never guess who just crossed the property line." 10 minutes later, we had quite the audience. Officer Ramirez, 2 patrol, cars, the entire new HOA board, and 3 neighbors who had brought lawn chairs. Pine Hollow does not get cable. We take what we can get. Janice was on the front walk, gesturing wildly, ranting about non-compliant structures and unfinished enforcement actions. Her ankle monitor beeped louder as she paced. "You do not understand," she told Ramirez, her voice rising with desperation. This man undermined community integrity. His testimony was biased. He has always been hostile to the HOA. "Miss Weller," Ramirez said calmly, "your parole terms prohibit contact with Mr. Cross, his property, or the HOA in any official capacity. Did you read those terms?" She scoffed. "Those terms are based on lies. The cabin should not even be here. The board approved a remediation plan." Marcus, the new HOA president, cleared his throat. "A small thing," he said. "We actually voted to designate the cabin as an historic, rustic feature last year. It is literally written into the updated covenants, page 4. He held up a binder. On the front, Pine Hollow Preserve. Covenants revised without the crazy. The Neighbors chuckled. Janice did not. There's no way you people legitimized that shack, she hissed. Actually, Marcus said, it increased everyone's property value. The realtors call it character. I tried not to smile. Then Ramirez turned to me. Mr. Cross, you said you had video. I nodded and pulled out my phone. Video of Janice marching up my driveway. Crossing clearly marked no. Trespassing restraining order in effect. Signs. Standing within arm's reach of me. Voice raised, threatening to finish what she started. Janice lunged toward me, like she was going to grab the phone. That was mistake number 3. Ramirez moved faster. One moment, Janice was yelling about community standards. The next, she was face down in my shrubs, hands cuffed behind her back, ankle. Monitor shrieking like a smoke alarm. You cannot do this, she screamed. I am the president. The president of what? Marcus said, the Department of Bad Life. Choices. The neighbors laughed. No one rushed to help her up. Ramirez read her the new charges. Violation of a restraining order, parole violation, harassment, and given your prior conviction related to this same victim, he added, I would say the judge is not going to be amused. They hauled her up. Her eyes found mine again, wild and disbelieving. You were supposed to be gone, she whispered. Nah, I said. I pay my mortgage. You dodge your consequences. Different lifestyles. They put her in the back of the cruiser and drove away, her ankle monitor still, flashing through the rear window like a dying firefly. 2 weeks later, we got the follow-up. Another email from Marcus. Update, the court has revoked Miss Weller's parole and imposed an additional 5-year sentence. As part of the terms, she is prohibited from serving on or advising any HOA, condo, board, or similar governing body for life. For life. They basically banned her from her favorite hobby. The court order even had a line my lawyer found for me. Defendant shall have no role, formal or informal, in the governance of any residential association. Janice Weller sat in the courtroom, her face frozen in complete disbelief as the judge read the sentence. 5 more years lifetime ban from ever touching. And HOA again? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no sound came out. The woman who had spent years measuring chimneys and photoshopping cabins into beige boxes had just been handed the one punishment, worse than prison time. Permanent exile from the only thing she ever truly loved. The gavel came down and Janice Weller, former queen of Pine Hollow, preserve, crumpled in her chair.